My name is Nawa-ish, and welcome back to Illustrator Plays Minecraft. Today is the day for moss and rocks. More specifically, we're doing a moss farm and something to go around it. So I'm thinking we can do it right around here. The idea is that after this big pillar got brought up from the earth, the landscape around here got kinda messed up. And huge boulders from up on the mountains came tumbling down and landed around here. And inside of the boulder, we can make the moss farm. So let's come over here, and we can find a good spot to draw the scene out. I'm thinking right around here. We can put a block here so I know where we're supposed to stand. So let's get to drawing. To get warmed up, I started off with doodling some boulders in different kinds of shapes and sizes. And because this is going to have the moss farm in it, I want the rocks to be very, very mossy, especially near the top where it would be the most weathered. From there, I started to think about which shapes I wanted to use for this. I like the look of the boulder that has the one side that's completely flat, so I'm going to go with that for the main one. And then a second rock that's kind of nestled in with the big rock, where it leaves a bit of a crevice or a bit of a nook, which is where the entrance to the moss farm is going to be. After doing a small thumbnail sketch, I started on the main drawing, while keeping in mind all the landmarks, like the pillar thingy that's in the background. If the idea is that these big boulders came tumbling down from the mountain, I assume the trees that were in the path of the rolling rocks would have been crushed or uprooted. So the trees that are here now are younger. And there needs to be some fallen logs. And of course, the rocks need to be mossy. The ground is going to be mostly podzol and brown with all the fallen leaves, with some greenery and shrubbery poking through. There's a continuation of a path that goes around the rocks, and it also forks off to the left. Not sure if we'll have the time to start on the mountain that the boulders came from, but I've drawn it in just in case. And of course we have the giant pillar that we made on the right. There are a lot of sharp angles on this boulder, and I'm unsure how well this is going to translate in Minecraft, especially at this scale, but we shall see how it goes. Okay, so we can smooth out this ground a bit before we start. Get rid of this little mound. And now, first things first, we're gonna start with an outline with stone. Kinda like a wireframe structure, so we can get the shape and the placement right. I'm just eyeballing the shape here, and we can go up to around here. I think we can go a tiny bit higher, and then we can just connect the 2 points together like this. Just going diagonally up. Kinda rough, but I think this'll do for now. And we can have the second rock over here, pretty close to this main boulder. I think it needs to be a bit more pushed back so it overlaps a bit more with the main boulder. So let me just tear this down. The main rock can stick out a tiny bit more too, like this. And the second boulder will be like this. So this is what it's looking like, and I think it's good. It is kind of hard to tell because the gray of the stone is blending in with the gray of the gravel, which means we should just get rid of this and replace it with dirt. Ooh, this is a lot of gravel. We are not going to leave the ground as just grass. I want to make it look more like this, with the majority being podzol, and then we can add in some other brown blocks. But instead of going and digging out the podzol from somewhere else, I'm just gonna plant a bunch of 2x2 spruce trees. Ah! Podzol done. I swear it is always raining here. I'm gonna continue this pathway and have it go like this. And it splits off this way. We can add more block variation later, but for now I'm just gonna bring back a tiny bit of green. And now using the picture, we can put down some placeholder blocks for where the trees will go. Some fallen logs, like this. And yep, this is looking pretty good. The boulders are kind of looking like a bunch of stone noodles, so we can start filling in with stone. Okay, time to stop for a bit. I didn't like how this was looking, especially this top part. So I am just gonna try again. Second try is not that great either. Especially the view from over here on the path. It is just a giant blob. I mean, it looks okay in certain angles, but Hello, hi, this is Future Nawa here. Looking back on this, it's actually not that bad. I think I was staring at it for so long that I was only really seeing the flaws. But of course, I decided to tear the whole thing down and start again. I dug so much that I needed to fix my pick. So yep, completely blank slate. Honestly, I probably could have chipped away at this and then eventually got it right, but I figured it might just be quicker to start from scratch. But this time I'm gonna really take my time and plan it out. I went and sketched out the boulder with really basic shapes. I thought it might help with figuring out all the angles. I will say this boulder was probably the closest I came to going into a creative world and making it and then learning how to use Litematica. It was just a bit frustrating. But I do like bumbling around and trying to figure things out in survival, even though it does take a lot longer. Maybe in the future I can try it? Especially if I'm making something really big and intricate. I can imagine myself using it to make the overall shapes of a build, kinda like a rough outline or drawing, and then going in and putting in the details in survival. It might be the best of both worlds that way. Okay, I finally got it to an okay-ish state. There's still some parts that I do want to fix and tweak, but I think that can wait until I'm going in with the texturing. I used some mossy cobble to differentiate between the two planes of the rock, and it did kind of help. When it was all just gray stone, it got really confusing. If I ever do something like this again, I think I'm gonna use colored wool or concrete or something, just to help visualize all the different sections. And looking at it from the path here, it's still a bit blobby, but it definitely is a bit better than before, I think. And once I start putting in moss and stuff, it will probably get a lot better. Well, I do need a break from looking at all the stone, so it seems like a good time to start working on the actual moss farm. So we can dig in here and clean it up a bit. We can just dig a small pit so we can put the farm in there. I dug way more than I really needed to, but at least I don't have to worry about running out of space. So for this moss farm, I'm just gonna follow along with a tutorial. I'll put a link in the description box. I've got all the stuff, so let's get to it. Alright, that should be it. Just gotta put down the lever and... Yay, it works! Something about this is very mesmerizing. I can't stop watching this. I also dug a path here to the moss down here, so I can change it out for a pale moss whenever I need to. And this design has composters, so it's self-fueling, which is always nice. And maybe in the future I can connect to the hoppers here, just to have a stash of bone meal ready. Okay, I guess it's time to tackle the rock again. I'm just gonna cover this up so blocks don't fall down onto the farm. And we can keep it running while we work. First, I should sleep. I'm gonna collect some green blocks for the moss. Some wool. I should really do something with these sheep. And we got all that gravel, so there's some concrete. And there should be a way to click both mouse buttons and... nope. Oh, I got it. We have our mossy colored blocks. So let's start mossifying. Nice and mossy. It's not looking as bad from this angle too. And we can start on the shading and the highlights. Just the basic stuff. Tough, deep slate, pale moss, and for the highlights, andesite, wool. I'm liking how this part is looking. The lighter blocks are concentrated in splotches with simple shapes. While over here, it's a bit all over the place and a bit messy, so I'm gonna try to make it more like this. This is one of those things where I can probably keep tweaking this forever, but it's at a point where I'm okay with how it's looking. So we can move on to the backside here and the other rocks. I just had a thought. I was thinking about what other dark green color blocks there are, and I thought maybe kelp block? I know there are like white string lines on it, but maybe in some circumstances it might work? Maybe? Let's see. Ooh, it is off by a pixel. How about here? Yeah, okay, that works. And it doesn't work here either. Well, it only really works here, but it was a good try. Okay, back to texturing. Jeez, okay. I did not see that skeleton. So I guess it's a good time to stop and show you what I'm doing. Get my stuff. I was trying to do this before I got hit by an arrow. As you can see, I decided to make this inside fancy. Just a mossy, cavey kind of feel. I don't think I'm gonna have to run this thing again for a while. There's so much that I've been turning some of it to bone meal. And yep, the rocks are done. A quick look at all the sides. We can finally move on from the rocks and start on the trees. So as reference, this is the first forest and trees that I've ever properly made. And it's alright, though looking back on it, there are a lot of things that I can do better now. Especially in terms of leaf density. I used a lot of leaves here without really having a lot of air gaps. So that's something to keep an eye on. There's this tree. I focused more on the canopy and the branches on this one. And the most recent ones over here. I mean, not counting this one because it's huge, but these ones. They're closer in size and shape to what I'm thinking. And then there's these ones up here. I did make these to see from far away, so the branches are pretty weird, but yeah. So with that in mind, let's start on the trees. Okay, I don't really have a lot of leaves. Guess I'm gonna have to collect some. Well, luckily we have a bunch of bone meal now. Oh, right. The leaf color is different because of the biome. Gotta keep that in mind when I'm choosing which leaves to use. Well, let's start collecting the leaves. The biome changes right here, it looks like. Okay, so the birch leaves don't change, but the oak leaves, they change a lot. The azaleas, not really. Good to know, good to know. I am gonna start with the smaller trees. And I'm gonna go with azalea leaves for these. Can't forget the air gaps. Alright. For this small sapling over here, I need to figure out which leaves to use. Azalea is a bit too close in color to the moss, so I'm worried it's gonna get lost. And the oak is also doing that. Birch might work. Yeah, it's not really working. I think the texture isn't dense enough. How about mangrove? Yeah, I think that looks okay. Alright. It's time for a tree montage. Well, apparently this is gonna be a thing now. Oh, look at this creeper hole. I was just trying to finish this last tree. So here are the trees. I try to keep them a bit consistent. Like the trees with the stripped spruce trunks have oak leaves, while the dark oak trees have birch leaves. Stuff like that. Almost like there are different species of trees. The trees aren't quite as close together as my first forest, but I kind of like it. And I suppose I can always add more to it if I wanted to. That, and I'm sure that having some ground coverage with the bushes and the grass and stuff will help fill it out, which is what we will do now. Taking this as an example, we'll use mangrove leaves for the bushes, then there's a brown concrete powder, soul soil, and I did do this thing over here where I put glazed terracotta underneath some leaf litter. And it kinda looks like tiny little flowers if you really squint. Gonna go in and put the stuff down. So first, bushes. We can also put in more podzol. Strategically put down the grass. And this decomposing log should have lichen and some mushrooms. Flowers. Oh no. I just want to plant some flowers in peace. In the drawing, the space between these two rocks are a bit dark, so we shall do that too. I have somehow forgotten about the brownish colored terracotta. Glazed terracotta flowers. Final little bit. Gotta do the pathway. I am gonna continue on with this block palette. Though this plain pathway was kind of growing on me, so maybe I'll just end up reverting this later. Final details with the little rocks. And of course we gotta light this place up so the mobs don't spawn. Ooh, I also somehow forgot about green terracotta. It's not as dark as a kelp block, but it works. Okay, I cannot help myself. I'm just gonna tweak this rock one last time. Just over here. It's fine. And what about adding a bit more block variation? Did it make a huge difference? but it was worth it. I may have also added in a couple more trees and tweaked the trunks a bit by adding trapdoors, stairs, and slabs and stuff like that. I'm pretty happy to see this forest expanding, and it's interesting to see my skill in tree making is slowly evolving. So here is one last comparison between the drawing and what we made today. I was kind of hoping we had enough time to start on the mountain in the background, but then the big boulder said no. There might have been some hurdles with the big rock, but I like it. So thanks for watching. I hope to see you soon.